Okay, I am standing up here with a disruptive thinker as a speaker tonight, and you can tell because he's like turned the podium and messed with my feng shui completely. So that's what you can expect tonight. Good evening, I'm Anya Fourie, I'm the director of Scifest Africa, and tonight is a very special lecture to me, but also very much to Scifest Africa. It is the Christina Scott Memorial Lecture, in which we celebrate, a woman who's about that big, but you know what they say about dynamite that comes in small packages? Christina Scott was a SABC journalist. She was a science journalist, one of South Africa's foremost and leading and tough science journalists who got it right. She was a mentor to me as a science journalist, but also as a science festival program director. And she just never took no for an answer. And unfortunately, Christina passed away in a car accident. And because of everything that she had done for Scifest Africa, we decided to create the Christina Scott Memorial Lecture in her honor. And the point behind the Christina Scott Memorial Lecture is to really focus on what we do here at Scifest Africa, and that is science communication. She was a leader in the field as a journalist, but also in terms of knowing your audiences, knowing what they want, and knowing what works. So we have this lecture in her honor. Many of you are here, I can see her friends. And so, it is really only fitting that we bring the leading science communicators, not only in South Africa, but also around the world to give this lecture. The second reason, why we have who we have with us tonight is that many of you will remember last year, Claudia Alexander, who was NASA's leading scientist or lead scientist on the Rosetta mission. And unfortunately, this was her last international trip to Scifest last year, and she passed away from cancer not too long after that. She never informed anyone that she had cancer. She motored through this festival like I've really never seen anyone. She did outreach every single day. She did lectures every day. She went to NMMU. She went to Nelson Mandela Bay Science and Technology Center. She was an incredible woman and worked at the Jet Propulsion Lab for NASA. And so we thought it fitting with Jim Adams from NASA to also honor her and the big impact that she made at Scifest Africa last year by asking somebody from NASA Jet Propulsion Lab, who is a science communicator, to do this lecture tonight. The third person that we're honoring tonight is a man by the name of John Crossland, who also passed away not too long ago from cancer and played a big role in Scifest Africa for many years. John was a very good science communicator, extremely passionate about science, engineering, and teaching young people. He worked with us as what we call, just our logistics guru, him and Charles Phillips. He was based at the Cape Town Science Center in Cape Town and really just gave it his all when he came to Scifest. He ran the micro-rockets workshops, the soapbox derbies. He would fetch wood for, whatever it is you needed. You would just say to John, John, I need this. In fact, you didn't even have to tell John. He just kind of saw it coming. So we honor John's memory. We honor what he did, not just for Scifest, but I think also for Bloodhound. He played a big role in Bloodhound and the education program. So this really is, a memorial lecture to three incredible souls who were very, very passionate about science communication. Thank you. The other thing about those three people is that they were very much out-the-box thinkers. And so tonight, as I said, we've got somebody who messes with feng shui a little bit, thinks about life differently. It's very difficult sometimes for scientists to communicate what it is that they're doing, to communicate their research, to get their data across. And NASA, they just do so much, right? And there's just so much data out there. But it's very difficult often to be able to communicate those concepts. And so NASA has this dude who's called a visual strategist. What the hell is that, right? But Dan, having visited you at JPL and having been in your studio, this man just thinks very differently, and you're going to see that tonight. So Dan is an artist, visual strategist, thinks big, thinks differently, and communicates NASA science in a way that people are able to understand it, brings the wow factor to NASA science. He graduated cum laude in his class, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about, his journey from art school to NASA. I don't think he ever thought he was going to end up working for NASA, right? I mean, artist NASA, what? So Dan, thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you for honoring the memory of these three people, in particular Claudia, and welcome tonight.
Thank you. Just a little bit. Let's see. Just making sure that we're all set up on here. I think so. Hello, folks. Thank you. I'm so glad I get to be here. And as she mentioned, hopefully some of you had the privilege of listening to this woman last year. Oh, but it's not here. That's the one thing we needed to check right before this. But now I know the drill. Yeah, there we go.
As far as we know, we're alone. We're the only planet where life seems to flourish. Discovery is a wonderful thing because we sit in our offices with blank pieces of paper and we do calculations and we maybe don't have the whole picture in front of us. It's the challenge of doing something that is so risky. It's the challenge of being bold. That's why we take on tasks like this. Will we learn that we can expect to find life everywhere? Or are we alone? I screwed that up. So let me try it one more time, okay?
So that was Claudia, and she was an amazing woman. I got to spend a lot of time with her with the Rosetta mission. Rosetta was, or is, the very first object that humans have ever landed on a comet. And she was leading the American science team, and I got to interact with her a bunch, and I'll show you one piece that we ended up interacting with. But outside of her leadership skills, and she had an amazing sense of humor and tireless energy, what I also realized is she had a passion to light the flame of curiosity in both young and old about the mysteries of the universe. And I think there are a lot of people that are grateful that they got to be able to have a moment with her within their lives. Unfortunately, she did pass away this last year, and I'm honored to be able to be here and speak in memory of her. As was mentioned, I sort of have a little bit different background of getting to NASA. I went to art school, and I studied graphic design. And when I was there, I was trying to do what a good graphic designer is supposed to do. A good graphic designer is supposed to make a logo. And I am no good at logos. And I was really struggling, and there's this little grocery store that I was working with. And this grocery store, they sell 500 kinds of soda, and they're all in glass bottles. And so I'm not a big soda drinker, but there's 50 kinds of root beer, 30 kinds of orange soda. It's pretty fun to kind of go through looking at that. And I had this amazing mentor, and he's the kind of person that I hope you've been able to meet in your life, but he's the kind of person that can look inside your soul and just like rip it out and pull it out and show you who you actually are and the path that you should take. And he looked at me and he said, Dan, you're just too practical. And you're so practical, it keeps you in a box. You need to just go play because you're so practical that you'll take the impractical things that you make and make them practical. And I had to follow what he was saying, but it sounded like fun, right? He was telling me to go have fun. And so I thought, okay, forget this logo thing. I'm going to go off and do whatever I do. And so I started to play with bottles. And, I'd kind of make little sculptures and do different things. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool to, light them from behind or maybe put them on a building right there. And, maybe when you're driving past this place, you would notice that it was there. And then I love the way that it sounds when you blow on a bottle, right? Woo. And I thought, I wonder what would happen if I put a bunch of these on top of my car. And you can see it says, does not work. It looks pretty cool, though. So I ended up, I said, okay, I'm not going to stop there. What else can I do? So I got my friend, and he kind of pushed it up and down, and that didn't work either, unfortunately. But eventually, I got the right angle and the right distance, and it made this beautiful noise. And it'd go, woo, 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 woo. And it was exactly the same speed that in the States an ice cream truck would make as it drives around. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be really cool? We have taco truck stands there. What if we put a whole bunch of these bottles on the taco truck stand and it'd make music as it drove around? And then my friend, she has perfect pitch. and she could blow on a bottle and tell me the exact note of all these different bottles. And I don't know anything about music. I don't know anything about notes, but I love ideas, and so I thought, wouldn't it be cool to make a pipe organ? So I sort of sketched this out. I don't know how to draw. I don't know how to do any of this stuff, and usually I don't know how to do anything of what I'm trying to imagine to do. But I realized that if you ask enough questions and you find the right people, not always the experts, the right people, then you can do a lot of really cool things. And so someone told me that this is a solenoid. I knew something like that must exist, and it was called a solenoid, and then we ended up making this thing, and it actually worked, and it was a lot of fun. And what's amazing is this is what led me to where I get to work now. And so the Jet Propulsion Lab is not in Houston, Texas. That's where the astronauts are. It's not in Florida. That's where we launch rockets. There's a bunch of other NASA centers. And then, but we're in California. And we're in Pasadena, right next to Los Angeles. And this is sort of what it looks like. This whole area right there is 5,000 people doing amazing things. And they do anything from building robots that land on other planets. So this is Curiosity over there, landing on Mars, and a bunch of my friends helped put that together. And we've also landed on other planets. We also have telescopes that look at stars and galaxies far, far away. And one thing that most people have no idea that NASA does, but we actually study the Earth. And NASA has 20 satellites that actually study the Earth. We look at the oceans. We look at the land, we study earthquakes, we study the carbon dioxide and monoxide and all the junk that we put into the air. And so we're trying to help understand what's going on with our planet. And so you might imagine that to work at a place like this, you have to go to Caltech or MIT or one of these amazing places and have always been the best student in the world. But here to tell you, you don't have to take that route. There are some other alternative routes. I did really poorly in high school. I didn't take the SATs, which you have to take to kind of go to college in the States. And I'm not exactly proud of that, but it was because I had no passion for what I was doing. When I was in high school, I didn't care, I didn't try, I had no passion. And it wasn't until after I got done with high school that I realized that I loved ideas and I loved making objects that talked about ideas. And so I ended up getting to meet the director of the Jet Propulsion Lab, and I had 2 seconds to sell myself, and I said, wouldn't it be cool to have artists come up with new ways of brainstorming future missions? And he said, oh, that'd be great. And then he literally walked away. And I was like, yeah, how do I get a hold of this guy? And he's gone all the time. And so I've been sending my resume in next day air, like a FedEx, because nobody throws away a FedEx. Everyone opens it, doesn't matter where it's from, because it's special, versus like a little letter. And so I didn't have, I had to go on a trip. My wife was around. They didn't have any letters, or I guess is that A4, whatever size you guys have, any of the smaller envelopes. They only had gigantic envelopes. And so she sent my resume and a little letter to the director of the Jet Propulsion Lab in this giant envelope. And he got it, and he was not quite sure what to do with it. I talked with him a bit. And bugged him, really, that's what I did. I bugged him for a little while, and he sent me on to some people, and they said, oh, you're an artist. You must know how to do animations, and it'd be great if you could do animations for us. And I said, this is a special place. I'll do whatever I can to work here. I'll figure out how to do animations. But this bottle project, this is what I'm really passionate about. And so I took a huge risk because I just graduated from a school that's very expensive. My wife had just had a baby, so she wasn't working. And this was my chance to we were running out of money. In fact, we ran out of money the first day that I got my first paycheck from JPL. So I took a risk, but he took a risk as well. He said, I don't really understand what it is that you do, but I'll give you 6 months and we'll see what happens. And that was now 13 years ago. And so now I have a team, and maybe, let's see, actually I think I'll talk about this project first. So this was the first project I did when I was all alone there. And it's about finding planets around other stars. So when you look up at the sky, you see all these stars, and we know about all the planets in our solar system, and some of them that aren't planets anymore, like Pluto. But we've been finding thousands of planets around other stars. So we live in the Milky Way galaxy. There are billions and billions of stars within the Milky Way galaxy. And this grain of sand represents our Milky Way galaxy. But what's cool about working at NASA is I can take a grain of sand and I can hand it to somebody and say, can you drill a hole into this grain of sand for me? And they'll go, yeah, that sounds like fun. So they actually used a real carbide drill bit, drilled the hole. So if this were our Milky Way galaxy, we live within that hole, but we've also found around 2,000 planets around other stars within this little, most of them are within this little teeny tiny area. Over the past 10 years, the hole's gotten a little bit bigger. But we're going to find thousands, if not tens of thousands, more planets within this little tiny area, let alone the rest of our galaxy. And then if you want to know about all the other galaxies that we know about, you need 6 rooms full of sand. So I'll do these installations with lots of sand, and this will be under a little magnifying glass. People look under it, and they'll go, wow, we're really insignificant. Or I hope they actually think that, man, we're really significant, and we need to take care of what we have. So that was the first project I got to do, and over time, I got to build a team. And so now I just hired a 6th person. She's from the UK. It took forever to get her into NASA, but eventually we did. And they're anything from people that have product design background to advertising to graphic design and illustration. And we do a lot of different things. And sometimes we're actually getting to help them brainstorm future missions, like what I had asked at the very beginning. There's a room that we call left field, and so the ideas come from left field, and I don't know if that's the same saying you guys have over here, but left field ideas are crazy ideas, and so it's sort of a big crazy room with lots of sticky notes and whiteboards and brainstorming, and we're not there to solve their equations or figure out the engineering things, but we ask different questions than they ask. And we do what we call helping them think through their thinking. So they're working on really complicated problems, and they're working with lots of different people from different backgrounds. And so it tends to be that they don't all speak the same language. Someone will be saying blah, 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 and this person has some different idea in their head, and they both think that they're talking about the same thing when they're not. And so then we go, oh, is this what you're talking about? Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I didn't think that was what you were talking about, but now we both have something to see. So that's the idea of thinking through their thinking. But we also do a lot of art pieces that go to public spaces, and this is one about the Rosetta mission. So Rosetta, again, was a European mission that was to land on a comet. And all my life, I've seen pictures of like Halley's Comet, and you see this big, long tail. So I always thought a comet always had a tail, but it doesn't. Most of the time, there's no tail. Most of the time, it's just a big hunk of ice. And it goes way out here, if this is the sun, way out here, and here's Earth. And then eventually it comes back around, and at some point it starts to warm up. And that ice sublimates. It turns from a solid to a gas, just like dry ice. And then it starts to sort of make this little atmosphere, and really it just kind of gets left behind, and that's the tail that we see. So we thought that that was a really beautiful story that most of us didn't know. And so we wanted to we had this opportunity to go to a festival and show some sort of piece about this. And so we thought, what if it was something like this, where someone got the sense of the tail growing. And so this is the project that we ended up doing. We worked with an architect, and we built this comet. And I remember working with Claudia, and she'd say, well, a comet is black. It may be ice, but it's black, black, black. And it's like blacker than any cement. And so we actually burned this metal shell so that it would be black. And it has a bunch of craters on it, and so we actually pounded the thing so that it would have these pock marks all over it. And then we put a bunch of foggers inside of it, and then the sort of tail would come out. And so we call this sneaking up on learning, because if I tell you I want to teach you something, don't teach me anything. But if there's something that's really mysterious and fascinating, you kind of go to it, and people come to this thing. Little girl loves comets. They go to it and they're like, "What is this thing? What's it about? Why is it like this?" And then people start doing wedding pictures and all sorts of stuff in New York. So it's kind of a fun spot. This piece is right outside our door here, and this is about finding planets around other stars, as I just talked about. But that's really hard, because stars are really big, and planets are really small, and they're just so bright that the stars are so bright that you can't see the little tiny planets that we're looking for. So we have to come up with some way of blocking out the bright light of a star to see the dim light of a planet. And so that's what this piece is all about. So I have two projectors. One is super bright, and it's shining this sort of yellow pixely thing on the screen, and that's a star. And if no one walks out there, that's all you see. But it's human nature, for some people, to do shadow puppets. So someone goes out there and they start to play it, and then they realize there's actually something else there. There's a really light that you can't see. And then people kind of have to find more and more people to block out more of the light. And there's imagery of planets as well as water, because we're looking for evidence of water around these different places. So this whole world of exoplanets is really fascinating to us, find these planets around other stars. And my friend came up with this idea of doing travel posters to far-off worlds. And so there actually is a planet that's called Kepler 16b, and it really has two suns like Tatooine on Star Wars. And so we were trying to think, how could we make travel posters to try to get people to move to a place like this? And so we have Relax on Kepler 16b, and I don't know if you guys can read down there. It says, the land of two suns where your shadow always has company. Got to have company. This is one of my favorite ones. There's actually planets that don't have stars. There's no sun. And so how in the world do you get someone to go to that, right? And so we thought, okay, we'll put on our thinking caps. Visit the planet with no star where the nightlife never ends. So it's always a party on this place. And so we ended up doing a whole bunch of different posters. If you Google NASA travel posters, these are all online. You can download them and learn about a little interesting tidbit about things in our solar system as well as outside of our solar system. And one of my favorite ones is Earth, because we were trying to do these things as if we're like 300 years in the future. And so we've already gone, we're on Mars, we're on Enceladus, we're in the solar system. And so how would you sell Earth again? And so it says, Earth, your oasis in space where the air is free and the breathing is easy. So anyway. Another piece that I have here is about Jupiter. And if you go up to the next floor up, there's a spot in the big hall where you'll find this big room where there's a cloud. So Jupiter is a big cloud. There's no place to walk around on Jupiter. It's just a big ball of gas. And so I created this cloud in a room. And then for this piece, a different piece that I have, you hear thunder and lightning, and you hear it in this room. But in this one, I actually had lights underneath that your eyes can't see. So your eyes can't see infrared light, but your cell phone used to be able to pick up infrared light. And so when you would pull out your phone to take a movie, you'd actually start to see a whole field of lightning that you couldn't see with your eyes. So the one that's upstairs doesn't have the infrared lights because camera phone makers decided that they wanted to put an infrared filter on the camera. So this doesn't work anymore, but that's unfortunate. But it's still really beautiful to look at. On 4th of July, NASA's going to have a spacecraft that's going to arrive at Jupiter, and it's going to study the storms. It's going to figure out how deep the storms go. It's going to figure out if there's a core on Jupiter and a bunch of other things. So be watching out for that. just to kind of give you a little behind the scenes, this is actually how it works. There's a tray of water, and it's just tap water, so it's not fog juice or anything. These are ultrasonic misters, and they vibrate so fast that they vaporize the water, and all that fog will stay right there unless you blow the fog around. And if you blow it around in just the right way, eventually it starts to fill up the whole room. If you blow it around the wrong way, it fills up the entire room, or none at all. I've spent a lot of time in rooms with fog. And if you backlight it just the right way, then it begins to feel like the surface or the top clouds of Jupiter. So this is front lighting. And then this is what it looks like when you backlight it. So this mission Juno, I've been working with for a long, long time, and it had this special moment where we didn't have a big enough rocket to go from Earth all the way to Jupiter. So what we did was that we actually used the Earth to slingshot us out to Jupiter. And so we thought, wow, we have this opportunity where Juno is going to go out towards Mars, and then it's going to come back towards the Earth. And so this thing that went into outer space is going to come by us, and what can we do to like communicate to it or get people interested in it in some way? And so anyone heard of Morse code? Morse code, dee, 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 dee. So that was the very first social media, very first Twitter, possibly. And so we ended up using that. And one of the special things about this flyby is that the closest approach was actually South Africa. So I'm going to show you this little video here.
This is my transmit. Maybe it's something you can use, I don't know.
The High Juno experiment is something that a group of us came up with.
The biggest challenge we had was we didn't know if this was going to work or not.
If it works, you know, I'm part of history.
This is W6JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. Hello, CQ, CQ, CQ.
The Earth flyby is Juno's way of gaining some extra speed, changing direction so that its orbit can take it to Jupiter.
We said, what if we actually sent something to Juno? Basically came up with the idea that we could send Morse code to Juno, enlist the support of amateur radio operators around the world.
So the intent is to join amateur radio community together in a coordinated transmission from Earth to the Juno spacecraft as it flies by.
The website would tell them, okay, key down now, then key up, transmit for 30 seconds. And that's how we would send a DIT. Everybody knows Morse code is dit, 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 da, da. Well, it turns out to say hi to Juno, it takes 4 DITs in space and then 2 DITs for the eye.
I thought, wow, that's a neat thing to do, and they're going to need a lot of people to pull this thing off. I said, I'm good to go.
We're getting ready right now. Here we go.
And now we are transmitting here.
They could hear ham radio operators all over the world doing this, which was really remarkable.
Everybody's doing this at the same time. Thousands and thousands of hams.
With any luck, the Juno spacecraft will be able to listen and hear all these amateur radio transmissions.
And so what we're doing now is we're looking at the data that's come down to see if we can put together that signal that says, hi.
Will it work? Who knows?
have the audio from Juno. I'd love you to listen to it.
This sounds very cool.
And it actually worked, and it heard us.
When you think about what it is, it was really, really amazing.
How many times do you get to say hi to a spacecraft that's swinging by your planet?
To be a part of it, that was very great.
More than thinking about what it means to me, I think it's just such a great thing that humankind has the ability to think beyond our own environment. It's the curiosity, it's the adventuring spirit, I think, that the space program has given us.
Hi, Juno.
Hi, Juno.
Hi, Juno.
Hi, Juno. Hi, Juno.
Hi, Juno. Goodbye. Thank you.
Okay, take 17.
So that was a lot of fun. I wanted them to say howdy, but it wouldn't fit on a t-shirt, so it would have been too long. And what's amazing about that project is it actually happened during the US government shutdown. And so our government shut down because everyone was arguing, and yet we were able to do something on an international scale, to do something really hopefully special and fun. So you saw a room in there. There's a room at JPL that is the place where all the information between Earth and the satellites that are at the moon or beyond go to. And it's called the Deep Space Network that we run, and there's antennas at 3 different places around the world, but all the information goes to this room. I've always wanted to do an installation about it. And so what this is it's called the pulse, and as lights go up, that means that at that second, we are actually sending commands to a spacecraft, and as lights come down, that means that for the first time, we're gathering data from a spacecraft. And then depending on how much information it's sending back and forth, it'll either have lots of light for lots of data or a little bit of light for a little bit of data. And then it switches between all the different things that we're speaking to every like 20 seconds or so. And so this is in the building where the director is, and so he can walk in every day and sort of get the sense of the pulse of space exploration. And we're hoping to make a little tiny version of this because he's retiring this year, and he can put it on his shelf. So this is a very visual way of thinking about that information that's with the satellites. But I've always wondered about listening, because I don't really deal with sound very often. And I've always wondered, like, what if I could close my eyes and I could hear where spaceships are? Because if I look at a piece of paper or a screen or something like that, that's very one-dimensional, but it's not visceral. It doesn't give you a sense of like where these things actually are. And so we ended up doing this project. This is called the Orbit Pavilion, and it's a giant seashell. And what do you do with a seashell? You put it up to your ear and you listen and you hear the ocean. But we have a special seashell. You walk into this one, and there's 28 speakers that are not only all around you, but they're also above you and below you. So it's like surround sound on steroids. So if you stand there, I talked about all those 20 satellites that orbit the Earth that NASA has. If you stand there and you listen and you hear a sound over there, 100 miles from your finger is one of these satellites. And then you'll hear them sort of move over you and around you, and then you'll hear the different names. And so it was really fun to be able to have families kind of go in there and get the sense of this world that's out there that you just have no idea about. And so, that's a lot of what I'm passionate about. Is I love to be able to give people a chance to hopefully be reminded about what a gift and a privilege that it is to be alive. And I'm going to show you something here that is what really makes me think about that a lot. And so this is a special little experiment. Nothing's going to blow up, hopefully. I don't know, if something blows up, then that means something's not right. But it's a fish tank, And what I'm going to make is called a cloud chamber. So if you Google cloud chamber, you can find ways of making this, and you can make this too. It's really pretty easy. This is a little bit nicer one than maybe the ones that they show online. And so what you need is a fish tank, and then there's something that's down there. This is a piece of felt that I have magnets on so it stays there. So this is, I put isopropyl alcohol, you can buy this stuff, and it has to be 99.9%. It can't be like the 70% stuff. It has to be 99.9. And so what you do is you take some of this, and you get it all soaked on this piece of felt. The magnets work really well because nothing else actually will. I've tried tape and glue, and that all kind of falls off. So what I have over here is I have a box. This is kind of a funny box. I put all these springs in here so that it would kind of add some tension here, because I'm going to put dry ice on this. This is just a piece of plastic. So dry ice you want to be careful with. All right, you want to get this. And actually, I'm going to need someone to help me in a second here. One person, I need one person, just any one person. Someone strong. You're strong. Well, you're strong. You are strong. I don't know. So here's some dry ice, super cold. I've never gotten to touch dry ice like this before. Normally dry ice is like really hard for us. And so just in a second. So I'm going to put a bunch of this. Actually, maybe stand back just for a second. I don't want to like have any of it hit you in the face or me. So we're just going to break this up a little bit. This is so cool. It feels like snow. Okay, so we got some dry ice there. So what I'm going to do here is we have a couple of straps. And so I'm going to push down on here. And I just need you to kind of do that. Okay. Push this out here. We're going to go like this, and then just pull it around and make sure the straps, are on the side. Wow, you're like a pro on this. We're going to do this and this. Yep, nice and tight. Awesome. And then we have another one. And I'll just do it on this side. So this is getting really cold. You wouldn't want to touch that with your bare hands. There we go. Okay. Thank you. Woo! So, super cold there. And then we take some more isopropyl alcohol. Take this off. And we're going to pour it all over on this. And I have a little trough on here so it doesn't hopefully get all over everything else. Then we just take a fish tank and we put it right over the top. Okay. So I'm going to let it sit here for a little bit. Make sure I remembered everything. I'm going to let it sit there for a little bit. And what's going to happen is that over time, you're going to see a little fog. And this is what it looks like. Oops, wrong. That one. There we go. Okay, awesome. So hopefully, we'll see if it works. Hopefully in a little bit. Actually, it's working good. You'll see this fog. Now, what's important is not so much the fog, but watch the little streaks. Do you guys see little streaks in it? So those streaks have an amazing story. So those streaks are showing us particles that have come from stars that have exploded. So millions of years ago, some star, or lots of stars, exploded, and they let out all these particles, and some of them have traveled millions of years to get to our solar system, and some of them get to the Earth, and some of them go through our atmosphere, and they come to South Africa, and they go through the walls of this building, and then they smash right inside of this little box. And for a fraction of a second, it's proof that there is an invisible world that's all around us. And it's not only around us, but it's through us, because there are thousands of these things that are slamming through you all day long. You have no idea, you've never felt them, you haven't seen them probably, but they're there. So, our bodies are made of atoms. Atoms that used to be in a star that exploded long ago. And then there were other stars that exploded, and they left all this dust around, and some of the dust from the star got together with the dust of that star, and then it started to get big and hot, and it became our sun. And then some of the other dust sort of became the planets, and the leftovers was asteroids and comets. But it's at this second in galactic history that some of these atoms are you, and you, and you, and me. It is a gift and a privilege to be alive. And when I think about this, this is what reminds me every day that I wake up. And I have to ask myself, what in the world am I going to do with my brief moment in time? Thank you, guys. So I'm going to let this sit a little bit. I need to add a little bit more alcohol. You can turn the lights a little bit higher up. If you guys have questions, you can ask, and then hopefully once this thing gets going a little bit more, you can come up and see these particles. Actually, you don't see the particles. You see the trail that the particle leaves. It's sort of like a wake in a boat. So, I'm looking at this
Right.
thing.
Any questions in the meantime? Oh, jeez, okay. Let's start with Tanya. Tanya, sorry, if I could just ask you guys to speak into the mic. Thanks.
Hi. You probably work with lots of scientists, is that right?
I do work with lots of scientists.
Do you find it sometimes difficult to work with scientists?
They're a pain in the neck. We're safe here. Do I find it hard to work with? It's all, like, there's all sorts of different human beings. Some are easier to work with than others. There are some scientists that are easier to work with than others. And so some of them maybe needed to have that person's early in their life say, you should go play. And then there's others that have been playing all their life, and those are the ones that I probably connect with more.
Okay, right next to you, Tanya.
Can I ask how you got respect from the scientists, not being one of them?
Yeah.
Inverted commas?
So when I first got there, I was sort of like, I don't know, the strange little person around, It's like, oh, there's an artist over there. And there was a point where some people asked, why is this person here? And I think what it was that I know a lot of artists that try to work with scientists and stuff. It's really important to have mutual respect. And so I have respect for what they're trying to do, and I really care about it. And so I'm really trying to express maybe an aspect of what they're working on that maybe they hadn't thought about before. And when they start to see that versus I'm just going to do whatever I want to do, I think they really respected that. And so it started out small, and then but now we're really like an institution within the Jet Propulsion Lab.
Any other questions?
There's a question.
Okay, Dave.
Thank you. You mentioned Halley's Comet. The Giotto satellite flew through the tail 30 years ago with quite a few experiments and sensors on board. Has that information, the data from that, proved useful to NASA?
You'd have to ask him, because actually last night I was asking him about the same sort of question, because so there's a mission called Stardust that had a big, I don't know if that's the one that wasn't 30 years ago, but.
Giotto was.
Oh, okay. So I don't know that mission very well, so.
Well, apologies.
Maybe he can answer.
What I'll tell you is I've never seen a scientist turn down data.
Yeah.
So the answer is all data is useful.
Right. Any other questions for Dan? One at the back. Professor Wilcox.
Uh-oh.
Yep. Here it comes. Take
No,
over.
I'm actually really curious about the nature of going out and intellectually playing, and that moment of creativity when you think, yes, this is a neat idea, let's pursue it. Can you describe how you get to that point of saying, wow, that's a great idea, I want to go for it?
Yeah, versus like the thousands of other ideas that we've come up with. No, that's really part of the process. Is what we first try to do is find out what is special. What is special about. So I come from a graphic design background. One thing about a graphic designer that you have to do is you have to be able to find something special in anything, because you're selling tennis shoes, green beans, toilet paper. You got to find something special to tell the rest of the people about it. So it's not as hard to do that with something in space science or something like that. And so, but we still try to find something special. And there may be 5 different things that are really special and unique, but some of them just lend themselves to easier wow factors, And so you kind of find that, and then you just, we just start to think. We try to find things from different industries or different areas that somehow make connections. And so we do lots of bad ideas, right? And so we have lots and lots of bad ideas. So we come with lots of bad ideas, and then eventually you find something, and the idea is really cool, but maybe we haven't rendered it in a way that's really cool. So we actually had a version of the Comet that looked really corny. It really wasn't all that interesting until we worked with this architect, and he made it beautiful, and he added more intellectual oomph to it as well. And so it's not that we come up with all the ideas. I talk with lots of people, and it's kind of like, have you ever heard the was it stone soup story? Does anyone know that? Stone soup. So you have a container, and guy only had a rock and some water, and he's like, oh, please, can you give me some onions? And someone gives him the onions. Oh, please, can you do this? And eventually he has like this amazing soup. And that's sort of the way that I work, is that I have a kernel of an idea, and then someone else makes it better, and someone else makes it better, and someone else makes it better, and then hopefully it's really, really meaningful.
Okay, I'm going to go Graham, Steve, Mike.
Oh.
How do you nurture your creativity and keep it kind of well fed, especially over such a long time?
I'm not sure. I think I'm just a curious person, so I like to investigate things. I try to. A lot of times now, I don't have to go look for things; people send them to me. So that's kind of nice. So people will say, oh, you would probably like this. And some of the times I've already seen it, but there's quite a few things that people send my way. So that in the limited time that I have, so I work full-time at the Jet Propulsion Lab. I have 3 kids, but I also do a lot of projects outside of JPL that are sometimes really, really big. And so I don't have a lot of time. And so other people sending me stuff is really great. I try to read as much as possible. When I'm on an airplane, that's usually when I get to read. So coming here was nice.
19 hours.
Yeah. So I don't know. I always want to get better, and watching the way that you guys present, trying to see how can you be better at this? How can I get better at? I can look at a jeweler and I can go, wow, they really put a lot of thought into the way they did this thing versus this person who didn't, and so how could that apply to me?
Okay, Steve. Behind you.
You need a microphone. You do. You do. Just whisper. Just whisper into it.
Right, Dan, I can see through you, and I am convinced that you are a maker at heart.
Uh-oh.
Because I notice the mindset that you have, putting bottles on the side of a car, that is purely a maker at heart. And I think that perhaps that's probably why you fit in so well at a place like JPL, because you might not have the skill set to make certain things, but you certainly have an idea. And I think that's what makers are all about. Out of all the projects that you've done at JPL, what would be the most interesting one that you think you've done?
Okay, can we pass the mic to me?
Yeah, so I think of myself as a prototyper. So I can use foam core and sticks and sort of do this and say, this is what I think it should be. But I don't make I don't know how to program. I don't know how to do a lot of things that, that we do. But I always try to figure out what is it. I try to figure out as much as I can about the other areas like software or fabrication, so that when someone tells me it can't be done, I'm like, no, it can't be done. I know. I just need to find a different person. So yeah. So, boy. I don't know. I mean, I like all my children, so I think they all had different things. The fog thing, I had to spend a lot of time with fog and learn how it worked. The sound project was something that I'd imagined at least listening to a decade ago, and I finally got to do it, and so that was really cool. There's going to be a music project related to Juno that I'm proud to have been able to help kickstart, and so we'll see what that becomes, and it's going to come pretty soon. So, but the High Juno thing was really cool too. Just getting lots of people together to do something, and they all loved it. You could tell that they felt passionate about that. So.
Mike?
Could you give some examples of the ways in which your creative work has influenced the thinking of scientists and technologists?
So it takes a long time for things to ripple through. So I've been there 13 years, and it takes a long time for technology to mature. But I think the biggest thing I think our influence has had has been when scientists come into the room with us, they feel uninhibited. When they're with all their peers, you got to talk. You got to have better ideas than them. You got to hold up everything, but when they come and talk with us, they're like, oh, well, the artist, I don't have to say a thing. I can just be in the room, and they feel like they have more freedom to maybe think differently. And so they love to come talk with us. And so I think that's one aspect that's really been really a culture change at JPL is having people like us around. And we could just sit there, but they're super creative, and they make our ideas way better. But yeah, I think it's just that they get this opportunity to not be in the mindset that they normally are in.
Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there. But did I just say there?
There?
It's like
Did you say
That's
that?
all your fault. All right. I would encourage you to go to www.directedplay.com, which is where you can see more of Dan's work. He's done incredible installations. You must be like the only artist who's actually got work in space, kind of thing. Right?
There are some others, but yeah.
So please, go and have a look at some of the work that Dan is doing. If you want to spend more time with Dan, or work with him a little bit, he does workshops from 9 to 12 every morning, working with the travel poster concept. But really, it's not just for children. If you're adults, if you want to play, go. And then I also encourage you to take a walk through Hidden Light. Beneath the surface is just off Thomas Pringle in the Sakana Gallery Annex, just to experience a little bit of these installations that Dan has brought to Scifest from us. And I think that there's a very strong message, Dan, and that really is what today's lecture tries to get across, is that I don't think the arts and the sciences should be scared of one another, or that there should be this competition with one another. Certainly with Scifest and the Arts Festival, we learn so much from the way that the Arts Festival, communicates, and hopefully they'll learn a little bit from us. And I think a challenge to the science centers and, and the other science festivals is to really think big. For me, that has been the lesson that I've learned from you, really, is that, there are these ideas that you can just present in such a big, beautiful way. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
I will take that with me.
Cool.
Dan, thank you very much.
Thank you.